We spoke about it a few weeks ago on the Paddock, Constitution Hill. Would you stick to jumping with him?
Oh, well, I have enough of a job now to look after my own. I try to give Henderson what to do. I mean, we're in a different environment now. The trouble is, 30 years ago, you definitely would proceed with him because there'd be no stick. I mean, you just have to wonder now the pressure that the owners and trainer and everybody be under. If he gets a fall and he gets fatally injured, you'll have all the people saying, I told you that was going to happen. They all know everything that's going to happen before it happens. So I'd say they're on a hiding to nothing, really, going back with him. But it's a decision they have to make, and it's not an easy one.
Oh, great, man.
Hi, lads. How
are you?
All
right, nice to see you.
Hey,
And you too. You're back from Wimbledon.
Oh, good. I never stop.
Wimbledon this time of the year, no?
Oh, every day's Wimbledon. Every day's Wimbledon.
I thought I'd get racing royalty with us today on the
What?
Paddock. Ted Walsh.
This
Racing
is good.
legend?
Very good.
Racing legend.
Yeah. No, you're the legends. You're the up-and-coming crusaders.
You're like the Galileo of broadcasting because you've signed
I was wishing it was
Ruby Walsh, Katie Walsh.
I wish I had as much readies in the bank as Galileo left everybody else.
Actually, he would be one of the great stars. He is, isn't he, Ted? Yeah.
It's a good down
Not many
line.
stronger, yeah. Is it?
Down line,
Is it? Okay.
That's it, because she produced two more of them as well, too. And they're not too bad either.
Yeah, they're great. It's a brilliant family. Thanks so much for coming over.
Yeah, I'm going to enjoy it. I'll enjoy your company, enjoy watching you, and you're the youth coming forward, which is
like
nice.
that
Yes.
Well, you are. I'm old enough to be your granddad. I could be your grandfather.
It's horrible though when you were aware that you were, and then you start working with people who really are, and you think, oh my God.
There's an emerging talent award at the HWPA, and I always thought I'd half a chance of winning it. I had to judge the fucking thing this year. So
I'm hoping I've still got a shot.
yeah, you never know.
Yeah.
But it is a golden era, isn't it, for Irish racing at the moment? You must be very proud of what your countrymen are doing in the racing scene.
Yeah, well, I'm old enough to have come through a golden era. When I was in my youth, in my teens, 16, we had Arkle and Flying Bolt and Tom Draper and Vincent O'Brien. And I never thought that I'd lived through another era when we have Aidan O'Brien on the flat and Willie Mullins over jumps. I mean, it's unreal to think that they're there and we have them on our own backyard every day of the week. We can go and see them perform and everything, plus all the great jockeys that ride them and everything else. It's just a wonderful time. And England, jumping-wise, is definitely lower than it has ever been. It's only a handful of...
What do you put that down to?
I'd say a lack of readies. I said the people here are spending the money. I mean, the two biggest owners that Nicky Henderson has, horse-wise anyway, are two Irishmen, Joe Donnelly and JP McManus. You know, and Paul Barber was the late Paul Barber, who was a good friend of mine, and he was a big cog in the wheel in Nicholson's, Nicholas, like, he's not getting any younger, but the owners are not there. They just haven't got the firepower. And if you haven't got the firepower, if you're a soccer manager or whether you're a racehorse trainer, if you don't buy the right horses, you're in trouble. If you don't buy the right players, you're in trouble. And the first to blame will be...
Willie attracted all these owners, but how did he go about developing the strategy of how he got the horses to become so dominant?
Well, first of all, Willie's a nice fella. I'm not saying the others aren't nice, but Willie's a nice fella. And he appeals to a lot of people. He's a great way about him. And his father laid a great foundation for him as well, too. Paddy used to go to France there with Herring Gull, and the late Don Run got killed there, sadly. But he always went back to France for horses to run in a race in France. And Willie went there as well and built up a great clientele and a great knowledge. Pierre Bullard and over there as well, too, marking his card where the nice horses were. And the people over there like him, like the horses coming to him. And those French horses he came. And he also took a big decision when himself and Jackie were long on the go to keep a horse they had in the yard, a good bumper horse, and to sell him to a client in the yard rather than sell him for more to leave to go to England. And it paid dividends. He has the horses now, and he has the clientele, and he has everything else. And now he has the ability, but lots of people have the ability, but to have the whole package. Willie is the whole package. He's a very personable fella to go with. He's got a great reputation. He delivers, surrounds himself with great people, and the whole thing is just working. And he has to keep up to that because we have three fellas on his tail end biting at him every day that are equally as good a talent. You have Henry de Bromhead, Gavin Cromwell, and Gordon Elliott. Do you know?
Do you remember when Michael O'Leary took the horses away and everyone went, Willie's in trouble?
Yeah.
And he literally, since then, went, whoop.
Yeah.
It's just unreal.
And now Michael O'Leary's back in the yard.
And now Michael O'Leary went, okay, yeah. And now you've got, some of the big spenders over here, your Brian Drew and Caroline Tisdale going, well, we'll have a horse over there.
Yeah.
You know,
It's
you've got the king and the queen. They've got a horse over there, and
yeah, very healthy state. I mean, when did you think? I remember when the Queen or the Queen Mother would have an odd flat horse, and it'd be always with John Ox, old John Ox, and then young John Ox. So my age, I was 75 or 6. But and that was the only horse that was trained here, belonged to the royal family. And now to have Willie with a horse belong to the royal family as well. It just goes to show the the level we've reached.
But I think the thing Ted talks about, and you get the intimation from what he's saying, that there was a time that Ireland dominated. Then, obviously, it's been a significant period of time. You know, the Corto Star, Denman era for Paul Nicholls, they dominated. It is cyclical. It's always been cyclical. And most sports are cyclical. Nobody stays dominant all the time, do they?
The Easterbees, when I was a kid going there, they had Sea Pigeon and Night Nurse and Little Owl and those horses, and the horse that John Alverton won the Gold Cup on. You go to Cheltenham there, and Peter Easterby had those 4 horses in the yard at one time. Then Paul Nicholls, when Ruby was there, he had all them good horses, Gold Cup horses, Champion Chase horses, Stayers Hurl horses, all together. That doesn't last. It moves on, even with Fred Winter or Fred Rymel. They all have their glory days.
Yeah.
And it just doesn't continue. The only person that has continued for a long time now is Willie.
Really? But when you're in it, when we're all in it, you kind of think this is going to go on forever, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because that person is dominating, is it? But it never does.
It does feel a little bit more, I don't know what the word is, but it does feel a little bit more permanent, perhaps, at the moment. Maybe that's because we're in the sort of, from an English perspective, the eye of the storm.
But there's never been someone so dominant, ever, than Willie Mullins right now.
Not for that length of time.
Not for length of time.
People have been dominant. Vincent O'Brien was dominant. He won 3 Gold Cups, 4 Gold Cups and 3 Nationals.
But on
it was only a short time.
Short time and a scale like this compared to... He didn't have 250 horses here and another 150 over there with that number of quality, right? It's the domination and also the quantity of the quality, which I think we've never seen anything like before.
Do you think it's healthy to have one, like on the flat you mentioned Aidan O'Brien?
I think if you're Willie Bunge, you think it's healthy.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've spoken to Ruby about this a lot, and he's like, everyone's got to match that level. But if you're a much smaller trainer in Ireland, I know you train yourself, but you're not looking at it entering horses in races when he's got 5 in there going, I mean, we're just never going to win this race because he's got all bases.
But you can't look at it that way. I mean, like Gordon Elliott started off very small. Gavin Cromwell started off very small. Willie started off quite small. Henry de Bronman started off, and they got there. You've got to just keep trying. And if you can't cut the mustard and you're not able for it, buy a lawnmower, go cut the grass. Do you know what I mean? You know, don't be whinging about it. Get down and try and do something about it.
But if he's got access to the best horses, if he's got clients with the most money, it doesn't matter really what you do, because you're just not going to get the best horses, and you need the stock, obviously. So you're swimming upstream a bit, aren't you?
Yeah, you are. But that happens in all walks of life. I mean, there's always something that's dominant. Sure, who would have thought that Liverpool there for a few years, they're doing everything right, and all of a sudden they couldn't win a match for a while.
And Mo Salah wants to leave.
And Mo Salah wants to leave. Like, and they were going to knight him there at one stage. You know what I mean? Now they're crucifying.
This was something interesting. Willie touched on this. I went to see him in the middle of October, and he talked about. I mean, you see it with football teams about the rebuild, and you have to have a certain amount. If you're champions, you have to have a little rebuild, sure, but perhaps like Liverpool, you can't do too much. And Willie talked about how there have been years where they've grown a bit too quickly, and they've almost got to keep that jack in the box a little bit, and always look to grow and build, sure, but you can't want to do too much too quickly. I think even a few years ago, he talked about they took the numbers down ever so slightly because that was the right time for them to be at that number. So he's always thinking on that level.
So what does a British trainer do then to sort of break the cycle? I mean, Dan Skelton seemingly is starting to penetrate.
Watching him this season has been remarkable how similar he's operating in terms of the way he campaigns his horses. Like Willie, for example, and they flood those novice hurdles. You know, there's loads of young horses running all those. And that's what, if you look at all the novice races, you know, hurdles and maiden hurdles and juvenile hurdles, Dan Skelton's got loads of runners, loads of winners. And in that, you're going to find those next stars, and he's building for the future with as many as possible. And his stable is a burgeoning stable, lots of numbers, but also lots of quality in there as well.
And he's a likeable fella.
And he's getting the owners.
Yeah, he's a likeable fella. I only know him to say hello to, and his brother the same way. I knew his father a good bit better. But they're likeable. I mean, you've got to be a likeable fella too. Fellas like to be there and go out with him, and he's a nice guy. He comes across as a nice guy. He's good on television. He's delivering the results as well too, and he's very good at what he does. There's a lot of fellas who are very good at what they do, but they have to have the whole package, and Willie has the package. And he has young Patrick coming on there behind him now too, youth mixed in with it as well.
Well, you've referenced it a few times, being a likeable fellow. Obviously, they can train horses and get them fit and win races, but how much value do you put on the owner being able to go racing and have a very good experience, have a social time with the trainer, for the trainer to be a good fella, so that they enjoy the whole experience?
Yeah. And that's something, you either have that talent or you haven't got it. And that, I mean, you can't cultivate being a friendly, nice fella. You can't, if you're a bit of a...
Rishi does it.
Rishi does that. Well, all three of you do it well. I mean, you might meet that nice fella.
He's one of the best players of the game. He's absolutely super. He's very good, very good. Yeah.
But you think it's a big onus on that?
I think it is. I think it's a big thing. And also he has the mind to handle 250 or 300 horses. Now, so has Gavin, and so has Gordon, and so has Henry. That's a huge number. But modern facilities have allowed people to do that. All-weather gallops mean you don't need 500 acres of land. Walkers mean you don't need fellas walking around the road for an hour walk on a horse. You know what I mean? All those things. And the feed is a big thing. And Paddy, his father, was one of the first into nuts, as we call them there. Connolly's Red Mills supply him. But like, one time there used to be a special man for the feed man. And that was an art in itself, all mixed together. Now you've done 2 bowls to him and 1 bowl to him and whatever bit of additives you want to give him. Do you know what I mean? But that makes it that you can deal with more horses. More horses.
So Ruby gave me a tour around Plus Sutton, and it wasn't just about, oh look, there's fantastic horse, which it was.
Yeah.
It was also the planning that's got into it when he talked about as a team, bought that field and that farmer sold us that, and then we moved it to that. Yeah. And when we started making our own wood chip, so we'd save money, so we could put our wood chip gallop here that we use a certain time of year, and the sand we use when it's, I can't remember whether it's wet or dry. And the feed comes in every couple of days and sits outside, etc., because it doesn't take up space in a barn, because barns is where you want horses. And I was like
a game of The Sims, isn't it?
It's unbelievable. I'm like, everything is thought of. Yeah. And you get that with Willie when you sit down with him, or at the races when you interview him about his bumper horses. And he looks down the list and he goes, that one, they tell me that goes well, that one there, and you're thinking, like, you are a genius, but you've got so many, you can't possibly know the ins and outs of everything. You obviously delegate incredibly well.
He does.
And you've got the business acumen, and you've obviously got something there's obviously something in here, this equine genius in here that can pick out something about a horse that perhaps no one else can quite at the moment.
Exactly. He'd come sometimes to the Curragh with a box loads of horses to gallop on a regular basis, and they might all have a plan what they're going to do, but when they come off the box to walk around, he might just say, I don't think he needs anything today, take him for a walk. Whatever he sees, as you say, he's a bit of a genius, or whatever and he is, and you can't teach somebody that.
But everybody has their system. And I remember I was very lucky one night to sit at a dinner where I sat next to Aidan O'Brien. Yeah. And obviously from the outside, you think Aidan does all these amazing things and he's got some gift that we can't quite see. So I started asking, and that's what I think. That's what I think most people in racing think, that he's got some sort of magic. And then I said to him, Aidan, so, what do you put your success all down to? Trying to be interesting and actually probably boring for him. And he's just
a little bit.
I did much more than that. And then he said it's very simple. You put the system in place, and then you just rinse and repeat. And I went, is it that simple? He went, now we've been doing it for this long. Everybody knows what they got to do, and I can trust them. So I know that when horses come in training, they're going to go through this system. We find the ones, we know what we're doing with them, we know what this horse might need. Just like you're saying with, this horse wants this type of feed or that horse. And these people who are now operating at this level, and this is the beauty about Aidan and Willie Mullins, they've got their systems in place down to a fine art, and obviously still always fine tuning, but it makes their position almost impregnable where they are. If anything, it's only going to, whilst they're still there doing it, they've got these amazing systems and amazing people in their systems that are just going to keep them at that level, keeping everybody at bay. And it's for everybody else to now try and find some way of matching it.
Yeah, and they both have a ruthless streak as well too, which doesn't come across because they're two nice fellas. But they just know that there's no shortcuts. Like if something has to be dismissed, it's dismissed, and that's it. Like man or beast, you know what I mean? Like,
but you probably can't get to that point without having that route in any walk of life.
No, you can't in any walk of life. Do you know what I mean? And some fellas have it when they're riding, and they lose it when they become trainers. And you know, there's no inch for anybody. It doesn't care who's on your inside, whether it's your son or whoever. It's like that's my spot. Yeah. And you have to have, as you say, in business as well too. You have to be that little bit ruthless. That just, you can't be looking and saying. You know.
I thought Willie, when I went down to do that interview with him at the Yard, was the first time I sort of felt I broke the barrier, and I thought he was quite ruthless. You know, I thought he didn't suffer fools. I thought, to be honest, he didn't suffer me. I thought I was sort of someone who'd be a bit like, and actually, you know, getting to sit down with him in his kitchen. There was a moment where a couple of days previously, a horse had got loose out of the field. Not one of Willie's, not a racehorse, and it got in the river, and it was swimming down the river, and it was tired, and two of the guys that worked with him, or one of the guys that worked with him, was fishing, and they called up a couple of guys from the Yard, and they came down. One of them jumped in, and they got a harness around its neck, and they managed to pull it out the river and save it. Someone had been watching this and found out who they were and written to Willie about this. And Willie sat down and said, do you mind before we do the interview if I just read you this letter? Because he was so proud that someone had written a letter commending his team and saying how brilliant they all were. And I was like, that pride in that team that he wanted to share with us was more important than anything else. And I was like, do you know what? There's just a thoroughly nice, proud, older gentleman in there.
Oh, that's there, and that's in his pedigree as well.
Yeah, massively.
And his old man was the same, and his mother, like, they're just nice people. You know what I mean? But they're able to portray it as well too, like, and they don't suffer fools now. But at the same time, they're just pedigree. Now the breeding is worth a ton of feed.
That's why when people listen to Aidan, and they're now a bit cynical about after a race when he says, you know, thanks to Jim, Joe, John.
That's to put all you guys, so you can't ask him another question.
Well, of course.
We've finished time for the interview.
He's absolutely magic at it. Like,
there's an element of truth about it that he does want to thank everybody because there's so many people that play a part of it.
Yeah, but he doesn't miss them either. The parish priest and the undertaker and the whole lot. He mentions them all. He's great. He's brilliant.
You're right. So we don't have time to ask him.
He doesn't. What do you call him? His name escapes me. Old age to ask the questions. Chapman. Chapman, like, he's nearly fit to throw himself under the ground because he can't get what he wants. Aidan just wants and Mary and Pat and Jim.
He's
and
combusting.
Mick and Tom and Jacinta and Helen.
It's ridiculous.
You know, and he mentioned them all. I text him in the producer saying, wind it up, Chapman. You know what I mean? No answer. He's brilliant. He's absolutely magic. I think he's great.
And he also tells you nothing.
Oh, nothing.
And he is brilliant
at
spending 5 minutes telling you nothing.
And you're going to discuss it with the lads. Which with the lads do. He looks at them, but they even laugh. You see Michael Tabor there when he says discuss it with the lads. You get a shot of Michael Tabor. He's laughing because he knows well. There's only one person, him. Yeah. He's God Almighty. He makes the decisions. He does everything else. He lets them all think that they have some say, and he makes them all think that they're important. He's just got a gift that nobody else has. I think he's brilliant.
But, I mean, it's lovely and we're sort of laughing about it, but given he is the star of flat racing in terms of training, it would be great from our point of view to have that insight that Rishi had when you sat down next to him, and we try and get it out of him. Yeah. And he doesn't really give. Do you think he should give more away?
No, he's dead right. He's talk away because if he gives you a little bit, you'd want more. And then if he says something that's a bit controversial, everyone is picking him up on it or one thing or the other. He just feeds them all kinds of stuff.
To be fair to him, he's been, when I was talking to him, he's been quite punchy about how gambling isn't a dirty word. You know, there are points that he sort of targets where he is quite vocal, actually. It's been really good to have.
Yeah, if you're training for Michael Tabor and JP McManus, you can't be knocking gambling, like. I mean, and John Magner.
He was punchy about John Gosden as well, wasn't he?
John Gosden was a bit over the top. Like, Gosden is paranoid about Aidan and his runners and 5-runner races. You wouldn't know what Aidan's going to do. You pay 5 jockeys, get up on the horses and ride them and let them all mind themselves. Don't whatever everyone else is doing. When Mick Canaan was riding for John Ox at Sea the Stars, Aidan had 3 runners in the race. Didn't bother Mick Canaan and didn't bother John Ox. Like just Gosden is getting his knickers on that over nothing.
Yeah, they did have See the Stars though, which helped, I think.
Yeah, he did have and he had Mick Canaan, which helped.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, which Mick Canaan was the greatest flat jockey I ever saw.
Do you think he was the greatest?
I think he was. Now, I saw Lester and Joe Mercer and all them as well too. But I think pound for pound, Mick Kinane was absolutely magic.
What about jumps jockeys?
Jump jockeys, lots of them. I was a Dunwoody fan all my life. I was a Dunwoody fan. I thought when I saw Dunwoody appear in the scene, he was just after my era. I rode a little bit an amateur with him, but I thought he was the bee's knees. And I always said to Ruby when he was starting off, like he wasn't going to be able to model himself from Mackay because there were different type of way they rode. Yeah. I said, just keep looking. If someone that says someday to you, you look a bit like Richard Dundee, I said, you've got there. You know what I mean? You know.
Where would you put Ruby? Or do you have that sort of fatherly?
No,
I want to say too much.
Ruby was tactically very good, good man over a fence, and he was an all-round jockey. You couldn't fault him. I'm not going to say how good or bad he was. He proved himself how good he was. Yeah. That he doesn't have to have me telling him how good he was, but he was good and great man to take a bit of stick. Yeah. You know, that was great.
And give it.
Huh?
And give it.
Yeah, but he was great to take. I could bring him up now and he'd say to me, I was always thinking maybe, particularly riding for Nichols or some of the English trainers, they'd always wanted to be ridden forcefully. Yeah. And I said, Jesus sake, don't be going out so soon, you know? And he'd say, but they want him upsides to the third last. Yeah. And he says, and he ring me, he says, now don't, before you start throwing stuff at the telly, I'd be at home watching it. He says, I have to be in front jumping the third last. I know you'll be roared and take your time. But anyway, he was good. And we got around, Big Bucks was the horse. He didn't want to be in front too soon. And he says, they want him up there. He says, they want to make him. He says, he'll pull up in front. So he just start flapping up and down like Charlie Swan used to do and let the commentator think that you're under pressure. So Nichols wasn't much good to ride. I says, he won't know what's happening. I said, he'll listen to the commentator. He hears the commentator saying, like, Big Box is in the drive, or Ruby Walsh is in the drive position, he'll be as happy as Larry, even if you know there's plenty under the bonnet. Yeah. So just keep doing that.
There was something about their relationship which worked very well, because, you know, you're watching on, you always think, you know, Paul's obviously not going to be the easiest man to ride for, and there was a period where he was, you know, particularly after Ruby, went through a few different riders. I'm sure there were a number of reasons for that. And before Ruby, yeah. You know? But something worked.
With Timmy Murphy and Mackay.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Two great jockeys.
So what worked, do you think?
I think Paul Barber was a big help. Paul Barber was his landlord, and Paul Barber was a tough man but a gentleman, and he was sort of one of the reasons why got in that way. And I'd say Nichols was under plenty of pressure as well too. You know, when you're under pressure and you get a bit of stick, you have to bounce it off of somebody, and Ruby was able to take it a bit that way. You know, he was loyal enough to him along the way, but he had a few tricky owners there, and owners giving out, and you're giving out. Next thing to do is, you know, is move. That's why I'd say that likes of Nicky Henderson must have been a great man to ride for, because he didn't vary jockeys. And Willie was the same. Like Willie's the same. I mean, Willie gave Ruby great confidence, you know, day in, day out. Like he could have gone for Richard Dunwoody there in the first bumper horse. But Noel O'Callaghan and Willie stuck.
Alexander Bank.
Yeah, stuck with Willie, like, you know, and they could have gone for Richard Dunwoody, professional school riding the race. And that was the make of him, his first winner.
Well, you mentioned Nicky's loyalty. We started this chat by talking about Constitution Hill. Yeah. I mean, if he does stay over hurdles, no slight on Nico, just to change something up, would you change jockeys on him?
I wouldn't. If I was as good a relationship with Nicky as Nico has, I don't think I would. I don't see Nico doing nothing wrong. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? I mean, the horse is after falling 3 times. He's brain dead, basically. I mean, why would you keep throwing yourself onto the ground, like, you know? I mean, once you'd say, that hurt, I won't do that again. And does it again, and does it again. He's guessing, as Frankham said here the other day when he was on, he's well, we call it a steppy horse. He's just doing that, like. And, I mean, you could frighten him that he doesn't do it, but if you take away that fear, or you put fear into him, he won't be the Constitution Hill that we saw. Yeah. He'd be the Constitution Hill, so we saw at Punchestown. Yeah. You know, who didn't want to line up and didn't perform. It's like, and he took Roy Keane's great points away from, like, and made him just a nice footballer. It's his toughness that made him as good as well. You know, that's what it is. Not afraid to get stuck in, like, and bury a fella if you had to. You know what I mean? So,
Alfie Inga Haaland, break someone's legs.
Well, I don't know about breaking it, but you know, they're the things that you have to. You can't trick around with them things. You know what I mean? You know.
Constitution Hill obviously made some howlers, and Nicker had no chance. There's an investigation ongoing at the moment. The horse that Phillip Byrnes came off, and to contextualise that, as we all know, there was money for another horse in the race who went off a warm favourite. Phillip Byrnes' horse had drifted. He was going to go and win the race, and Phillip came off. And it, you know, some people immediately looked at it and said, "Well, he's jumped off." There've been some arguing that there were reasons why he came off. Overall, What's your take on it? And I don't know how freely you can speak on it, really. But what was your take when it happened? What was your gut feeling?
As a fella, I thought he came off easy. But that's not to say like that he jumped off. Like he came off easy. I can never understand, being a jockey myself, not of a high standard, but a good enough amateur. I can't understand why you jump off. I mean,
Very dangerous.
why wouldn't he pull him up down the back? Why wouldn't he run him out? Why didn't he pull him up and get down and say the saddle slipped? There's a dozen ways you could do it without throwing yourself off. I mean, why would you open the door of the car and jump out? Why would you not say to the driver, would you stop and let me out? I mean, he could have stopped that horse anywhere along the line and come up with it one day. Like, he risked himself jumping off. It's not an easy thing to do. I don't know whether he did or he didn't. I don't think, and too many fellas now jump off. In my lifetime, saw a couple in my life do it, and I could never say. But they ended up skint, and they ended up half stupid as well too. The same couple of fellas I saw doing it. But like, it's a brain dead thing to do. To jump off a horse.
It's a terrible look.
Yeah, huh? It's a terrible look. Yeah, it's a terrible look.
But it was a bad look, and that combined with the fact that
Horse drifted.
that the horse drifted, and the fact that Charles Byrnes was found guilty of negligence with regard to a horse that was involved in a doping scandal. So there was. You know,
a backstory.
There's a backstory.
Yeah, backstory.
Because of that yard, etc., which people are putting 2 and 2 together. Whether they're getting 4, whether they're getting 5, I don't know.
Yeah.
But it looked
I think the thing is, though,
awful.
a lot of punters who watch racing, and I think that's one of the things that sometimes people don't appreciate enough, is that we watch a lot of racing. We haven't ridden. A lot of us haven't gotten to know horses, but we watch a lot of racing. We see these things every day. And when you see an incident like that, it looked to most people who are watching it like he purposefully jumped off. Now, I'm not saying, so just to clear that, I'm not going to get sued. I'm not saying that is
It looked that way.
But it looked that way. To people watching racing regularly, who bet on the sport every day, who contribute to the sport, it looked like he jumped off.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it does. Sometimes it looked, as you say, that's the way it looked from the punter's point of view. I just question all the time, like, if a fella falls off, I say, God, he's a slippery arse, so-and-so, like, he just fell off, like, you know what I mean? Or he made no attempt to stay on. But I can understand fellas falling off, and I say, God, he shouldn't have fallen off. Horse stumbles and he fell off, and if you had 20-1 shot, he was down unseated rider. I just can't get my head around, having ridden, why you'd want to throw yourself off a horse.
More broadly, because sort of only they will know the truth here, really. Yeah. And there's people defending Charles in the hearing. There's people saying, you know, Leighton Aspel, who's representing the IHRB, is saying that it looked as though he fell off. Davy Russell saying that's nonsense and threw that out. But more broadly, you mentioned it there, how much damage do you think it does for the integrity of the sport and getting new fans into the sport if they go, well, no, that's hooky, I don't trust this sport, I don't know what's going on, there's skullduggery, I want to step away from it. How damaging do you think cases like that, whatever the outcome, does to the sort of long-term appeal of horse racing, would you say?
This is an argument or a discussion I've had lots of time with different people. One of racing's big attractions historically has been what's happening on the inside. Yeah. Do you know what's happening? Do you know who's going to win? You guys must have heard. So how many times have we been to the races?
Yeah. What have you heard?
What have you heard? Yeah.
And
you're in the know.
There's an element of that perceived skullduggery going on. And that's been one of racing's attractions over the years.
But some of it is lauded as well.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why it's a dilemma, because you see an incident like that and you think, look, the sport needs to be clean, the sport needs to be transparent, and you can't do that because we're in a really visually professional era now. But then historically, you have a sport that has been interesting because people think we all know something that's going on. You guys know who's going to win this race. It's a setup and all this sort of stuff. I personally think that the sport has to have a clean image. But the problem is the damage that something like this does, let's say he is found guilty, the damage that something like that does, it leaves such a lasting impact that it's hard.
Quite hard to quantify, though, the impact, isn't it?
Well, it adds to the build-up over time that it is what I'm saying. We all turn up and we go, do you know what's happening? Because there's always an element of people knowing on the inside what's happening.
Yeah, but if there was a horse, we'd say the horse that was punted on was 6 in front, or something was 6 in front going down to the last, and he knew he was going to be a bad second, and the horse falls, and then he bails out. Well, that's one thing. Yeah. But like, I mean, because he has to, because he's going to win. But like, he had no reason to. Like, I mean, he knew he was in front. He could have done anyone. Like, I mean, as I said to you, I go back on. I met 2 fellas in my time, one fella who rode with me was riding a horse having a run, and it was a chase at Navan. Horses got very tired, and he passes me down at the third last, and I said to him, "You're going to be in a bit of trouble here." I said, "The horse in front is walking," which he was. Navan's a long straight. And he says, "No, I won't." And we jumped to second last, and he just on the sea in the weigh room, he said. So that was it. Now, he mentioned no names. Another day at Listowel, 2 horses fall at the last. Horse coming on behind him has to win. Jockey gets a blackout. Like,
how much of that goes on now, do you think?
Very little. Very little. Camera work is so good. I mean, look at the big inquiry into that's going to happen into this horse now. Like 30 years ago, there would be no question mark, because you'd have nothing. There's no cameras, no fellas analysing it, one thing or the other. You got into the thing now where you're measuring how much he can jump and the speed, and one thing and the other is, you know. Like he gained 2.6 and he lost 1.9 and all that. You know?
But the thing about this whole case that still strikes me is that originally, when it happened on the day, there was
no inquiry.
No inquiry.
I was
not surprised. I'm not surprised.
Yeah.
The Wexford stewards could come up with anything. They didn't even know they were at the races. And the Stipes that were there on the same day. Never asked a question, never done anything. You know what I mean?
That is, I didn't know
It's
that.
extraordinary, yeah.
There was no inquiry on the day.
No.
Is everyone watching going?
Yes, everyone was watching, so surely there'd be an inquiry. There wasn't even an inquiry. You know what I mean?
Why was that?
Because the 3 Stipes were obviously looking at the moon, and the stewards weren't doing something else. No one ever thought of asking an inquiry, like, you know. They're mad busy some days. They give fellas 3 weeks and 10 days and one thing and the other, you know. And then there's, for this reason, there was nothing. The country is talking about it, and the Wexford stewards saw nothing wrong, and the Stipes saw nothing wrong. That'll tell you the situation we're in Ireland with what goes on. I often said on television, you wouldn't know what had happened in the stewards room, and God only knows you wouldn't know what's going to happen. It's the most unpredictable results that you ever saw in your life. You could get anything. And I swear to God.
I forgot that. I didn't realise.
But don't you think I think that's a wider thing with the sport in this country as well. There's still this element of the stewards can be very behind closed doors, and I think there can be a disconnect there. I mean, the fact that
some of them aren't even in behind the doors.
No.
They're further away at the end.
No.
Terrible.
Stewards' inquiries can take so long, and they can take... Now, VAR is obviously not the perfect solve in football for obvious reasons, but even recently where you've heard the ref mic'd up about the decision, like, it brings the crowd in a bit. I mean,
but that happens in America, doesn't it?
Yeah.
They get on the phone, make their case.
Brilliant.
Saratoga, man ring down, and they'll call the result there and then they'll talk to the jockey who committed and say, "You committed that foul. Have you anything to say for yourself? Maybe he broke his leg, maybe his arm, creeping paralysis."
Would you want that here?
I think it would. I think that in Wexford, all they had to do in Wexford was to say, something looks fishy here, we're sending it on.
Yes.
Don't deal with it on the day. And the same thing should be about a lot of inquiries. It's too big a decision to make on the day. Yeah. Just say, we're not happy with what we saw, we want to investigate it further, they've been sent on. That's all you have to do. And then people can sit down and look at betting, and then look at the television and look at and do it. Instead, they do absolutely nothing, as if they were all on holiday. Maybe they were. Wexford was a seaside place. Maybe they were down on the beach or something. And the Stipes as well. They're supposed to be getting paid for the day.
One thing I don't understand over here on stewards' inquiries, when it comes down to you need to announce the result as soon as possible, and it's between 2 horses and 2 riders. Yeah. I don't understand why you get the riders in and speak to them, because there can be a language barrier there. Sometimes you might have a rider who goes in and has to speak in their second language in English to the stewards, and then you've got somebody else in there who's just a better arguer who can sway them that way. Why would you, like Erling Haaland goes down for a penalty, you wouldn't lift him up and go, "Tell me about that, mate," and you go, "Yeah, he definitely touched me." He's going to say that. He's going to say that, and I just don't see why they do that.
I actually thought that at Aintree. Do you remember Paul won it? I think not Eletto, Tom, Impere Pass, Bob Ollinger. There were 3 of them.
Yeah.
And I think it was Rachel on Bob Ollinger. Yeah. I thought she made a bad argument. I thought that she wasn't strong enough in the stewards' inquiry. She was a brilliant jockey, but in that moment, I thought, you've been out debated there. And I didn't like the fact that there was, it seemed to sway on who was, as you say, who was a better articulator.
Personalities come into it. Some people are just better at debating things than other people. Yeah. Like, I wouldn't be up against you. I'd be fucked. You would be. Imagine going up against him. He wouldn't leave till he'd won.
Dermot Weld was brilliant now. If you win in a stewards' inquiry, he was articulate and good, and he knew the 3 or 4 stewards were harmless enough, and he was able to put a case across several times. You'd want to be definitely in the right if you had if you're in against Dermot, do you know what I mean? Because if it was half and half, it definitely would always go his way. Just a good man at arguing in these cases. And Willie Mullins wasn't too bad either at it when he was younger, you know, still isn't. Articulate as well too, and just a bit of power. As you said, all they do is send it on. There's no need to be, no need to be trying to figure it out. Because if you finish third, you know you're not going to get the race. So, and you're friendly with the two guys. So you're not going to go for Rishi or Tom. You're going to just say, didn't really interfere with me.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Even though you might have got murdered, but you're not going to be a winner anyway. You might be promoted a second. We were in Navan one day, and Willie Mullins and myself in a bumper, 6-year-olds and upwards bumper, heavy ground. We're coming up the straight, and we were both hammering tongs at it all the way up along the line. And a young Tony Martin is coming between us, and we decide to make the gap a little bit smaller. And I think it was Willie's fault, but we came in. So anyway, there was an inquiry. And we went in, and when we got the inquiry, now I was third, Tony was second, and Willie won. They took it off us, took it off of Willie, and gave it to Tony Martin. And Willie said to me, I think you caused most of that damage. And I said, they think you did. So he said, I'm going to appeal it. I said, don't. I said, leave it so. No, I'm going to appeal it. So when he appealed it, I was called in on the inquiry as well. Now, and in Navan, nothing happened. Willie lost the race, I was left third, and Tony Martin got it. So now he appeals it. And John Maloney was the senior national hunt steward at the time. John's father, who used to be a grandfather of the man who was in charge of Galway now, he was the senior steward. And we went down anyway. And of course, he didn't day up at the turf club, these two amateurs debating over. He ends up giving both of us 2 weeks each.
Oh, way.
2 weeks, 14 days. Now, it wasn't 14 race days that time. It was 2 weeks. So we'll probably miss like 3 rides each day, or 3 rides, 6 meetings. You know what I mean? Willie, and Willie would appeal. Willie is great, but it's Willie's way or no way. A bit like Michael O'Leary. If you don't roll in with me, take the horses. Willie was that way. He was great. But several times, like he just, I appeal that.
I'm surprised you're so complimentary. You don't hold a grudge, obviously.
No, I don't know. Listen, we had many a touch around together. Do you know? But we enjoyed it. I'm 7 or 8 years older than I'm 75 now. He's 69. But we had a lot of tussles together. He's a great fella. But that's like fellas out in the football pitch or anything else. Like if you trips you up or gives you a kick, it's only in the part of the game. You know, it's nothing to be worried about.
Speaking of tussles, there's a tussle that sort of British racing has with the Derby at the moment in trying to regain its position in the sort of national and wider consciousness. It's kind of lost its appeal, and an announcement was made back end of last week about some changes that they're making. Free entrance, isn't it? Free parking.
They made a cock and bull of it.
More prize money. What, historically, or the changes?
They should have never moved it from Wednesday. That was a day, midday, wasn't it? Midweek, day off for everybody in London. They all went to the Derby. Now they have it on a Saturday. Like moving Christmas Day to New Year's Day. So it's a bad idea. We'll have the two of them together. Jesus sake, waste of bloody time. Do you know what I mean? That was the first cock-up. It lost the public appeal. And when you lose that magic, that public appeal, it slips then, starts slipping down.
But some would argue that having it on a weekend means more people can go because they're not at work. And it allows greater visibility because of that in terms of awareness.
They used to take days off. It was Wednesday. It's like
the Melbourne Cup.
Yeah, it's like Christmas Day. Like whether it's on a Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday, nobody works. It's Christmas Day.
But
they did it St. Patrick's Day. St. Patrick's Day.
They felt it was dying at the time, though, didn't they? So that's why they did it. They felt as if there'd been a downward trajectory.
They killed it altogether.
Well, they just didn't know which way it was going to go. So they went, well, let's move it to a Saturday.
So they brought it a gun and shot it.
But that's where it is now. I tell you what, that feeling at the Derby this year was I was stood with Ruby in the paddock, and it was pissing it down with rain, and we were into the back end of some low-grade handicaps, and we were stood there under an umbrella in the paddock, and I could honestly, looking around, I could see about 30 people. And I thought, this is Derby.
And even 15, 20 years ago, you would look out over the infield, the double-decker buses would be lined, the funfair in the middle would be heaving. It was an amazing sight, and it's an iconic racing image, I think, that line up the
I remember
Epsom Straight.
going there with a couple of pals of mine, and it was just to be there. It was something that you wanted to see. Epsom Derby, all the buses full and the people going on in the infield and everything else. And the horses used to walk down that time. They used to go down the track, to go down to the right, turn right and go across and walk across there, come out on the other side. There was something magic about it. You know?
It may go back. They may look at these changes and it might not have the impact that they want, and they may put it back to a Wednesday. I really hope, because it's such a iconic racing event, that it can get back in the sort of public's sort of consciousness, as I say. Do you think the Derby can return to the glory days? The National, for example, was struggling in the late 80s and has returned.
I think the problem for the Derby is it's a multiple number of factors contributing to it. It's not just, and moving it from the Wednesday to the Saturday has been one of the things a lot of people have spoken about. Getting the infield back to something like what it was is one of the other things, but also the quality of the race over the years, And again, we were just talking about Aidan O'Brien, but Aidan has dominated that race. And I'm sure you remember the Derbies where you used to have, there would be days where or years where you'd have 5 or 6 different trainers that would have their Derby horse.
Leading
the trials,
there'd
be the trials would be important to establish which of those horses amongst those trainers. But now it's which of the Aidan O'Brien horses is his best Derby horse.
Yeah.
And it's not Aidan's fault, it's not Coolmore's fault, it's what's happened over the years. And again, you can't do it without the raw material, and most of the raw material belongs to Coolmore.
So there's two points I want to ask, because they've increased the prize money, haven't they? For the
2 million. So 2 million, and increased it for the Coronation Cup as well,
Group
which they
1
moved
races,
to the Saturday.
Top level races, increasing the prize money. Coolmore will have a very good chance of winning that, and money is important for everyone, but of all the people in racing, they probably need the money the least, along with the likes of Godolphin and what have you. Why not use the additional 200 grand or whatever it is to take that up to 2 million and put it at the bottom to incentivize people to come in at a lower level? I've spoken to Ruby a lot about this during my time at ITV. I always think by putting it at the top, it detracts people from getting in who are running around Kempton. We'll get to Kempton in a moment, for 3 grand on a Wednesday night. Why not incentivize people to come in so that they get a return on their investment at the lower end, to then get them in the ladder that maybe shuffles them up to compete for that.
How would that look, though? As in invest it in where?
Well, say you have. I mean, they did it with the Sussex Stakes. I think a few years ago they made it a £1 million race, maybe. Say you're increasing the King George, for example, now a huge pot. Say there's a total across those 4 Group 1s of 500 grand added. That 500 grand would go so far in Class 5, Class 6 races. That would incentivize people who are coming in for 5 grand for a horse. At least they're then getting a return on their investment. At the moment, most people at the bottom end are spending 20 grand just to have a horse in training.
But that's not when you sell the sport. You sell the sport at the top end.
No,
You
that's
buy
not-
eyes,
that's
buy
not a
eyes,
counter argument.
buy eyes on the sport. Car Ying Rising, for example, who won in Hong Kong, the sole reason he's not coming to Royal Ascot is because of the Everest. Because the
prize
Everest is worth 20 million. And that's why he's not coming to Ascot, because because David Hayes, his trainer, doesn't believe the horse can take him both. So they're choosing the more money.
Okay.
So I know that, Will Aitkenhead from Ascot, he put out a tweet when the prize money thing was mentioned, saying Car Ying Rising has earned, the Ascot race he'd run in, 13 of his 18 wins are worth more.
That was specific to Zach Purton's comments about how he would earn more money winning Grade 2 and 3s in Hong Kong, which was wrong, because obviously those Grade 2 and 3s that he won were not as much as the race for the Royal Ascot.
But it is prize money that still it boils down to, because the race.
What difference is 100 grand going to make to the Derby? It's a stallion-making race. Yeah. Everyone who has a Derby horse will run in the Derby, but 100 grand would go a long way at the bottom.
You said it's a stallion-making race. It's not actually. The Epsom Derby and the Irish Derby have become a no-no as stallions. No one wants to breed to a 1.5 mile horse, and particularly an Irish 1.5 mile horse. They might forgive you in Epsom if you go back and win the Eclipse or the 1.25 mile race after it. But if you're known as a true blue 1.5 mile, like Harz and the Standing is a National Hunt Stallion, a hell of a good horse and a very good stallion. But like he's a dual Derby winner, a real good horse. And there's a heap more than Derby winners, and that's what they started. Oh, he wanted a 1.5 mile as a 3-year-old.
But isn't that now because the emphasis from breeders is on speed and precocity to then sell them abroad?
This is the reason why it's not just about getting people to the races on a Saturday and filling the infield, because the Derby itself has lost its position. So back in growing up in the 70s and 80s, You know, Nijinsky would become a top stallion. Mill Reef would become a top stallion. You go, you know, Shergar obviously was when he went to start. All the horses through the 80s, you know, you go back even to the point where Galileo wins the race.
Yeah.
Galileo, who's the best stallion that Coolmore have ever had. Yeah. I mean, don't forget when Galileo first went to stud, he wasn't already there.
No.
He had to establish himself because he was out of the ordinary. But he wasn't. If you look at all the Coolmore stallions that have won the Derby since, you know, High Chaparral or whoever else, you know, obviously there's some that, but they see them as staying or national.
That's what they see.
And it's not as attractive. So it's almost like a whole sea change you have to do.
So then how do you get back to that?
I think you have a chat with Liverpool and ask them how did they get the National. Because you just mentioned earlier on, I remember going to the National before Ladbrokes took it over and Mike Dillon, and you could have played football up and down the track. There was no one there. 7,000 or 8,000 people. That's all. Red Rum came on the scene. He won the National. He won 2 Nationals. Then he won a third one. Was placed in 2. And whatever Ladbrokes did and Mike Dillon. I remember well at the time. I remember being in Liverpool. I went over with the kids to show them Liverpool. You could have played football up and down the in front of the stands. There was no one there. 8,000 or 10,000 people. Now it's 3 days mapped. Whatever Liverpool did or whatever they marketing people did or whatever they did, there was bits of old flat races there. There was all sorts of Mickey Mouse races. It was a kip.
Didn't they reconnect it with the city?
Whatever they did, it worked.
I lived there for 5 years, and it became part of our
heritage.
Yeah, we had a flat overlooking Moorfield Station, and we would go outside, sit on the balcony with beers on Ladies' Day, just to watch them flock through, like we did. I was a student, and it was just like, and you knew, and then we'd always try and go on one of the days because it was the city's race, so the city's meeting.
I think that's a great idea because I was obviously living near
on the balcony watching girls go by.
That's what we were ultimately. Look,
he was a student back then. He's a married man now.
You probably, you don't say it nowadays, do you? But hey, that's what we did. Of course we did.
They've been going on about Epsom.
You were kinky also, weren't you?
Listen, that's what we did. It was great. You know,
there's been a lot of focus on trying to get the Derby connected to Epsom.
Yeah.
I think they need to think about connecting the Derby to London and making it that big.
But Liverpool definitely, whatever they did, they have to be commended.
And just play it off against. The thing is, right? If you're going to go somewhere, you can put top hat and tails on in June. That's near London at the moment. You're going to Royal Ascot.
Yes.
Because you don't even know Epsom's happening. Believe me, people don't know. They know in those sort of lesser fans. They know about Royal Ascot. And the people that go to Royal Ascot each and every year, when you talk about Epsom, they go, what's that? Genuinely, that's in people's consciousness now. And you need to try and play it off and say, you know, if you want to come to do something where everyone can be royal, do it at Epsom, not at Ascot.
And 2 days would be enough.
Yeah. 2
would be plenty. Stretching that champion, the third day into milking it too much. 2 days would be plenty.
But they are making efforts to increase the quality.
It is 2 days now.
Is it 2 days now?
Friday or Saturday?
Is it? Yeah. Well, they'd stretch it at one stage.
They talked about making it 3 days and spreading it over the week.
Totally. Could nearly have them all the one day.
By the way, what they've done, the changes they've made are they're really good. The Jockey Club couldn't have done a lot more. So for right now, well done for trying to redress it.
Can I tell you my slightly left field idea on this week's Paddock?
Go on.
I pitched it actually. Look at you getting all. This is going to be good. I hope I can
better be
articulate.
good.
Yeah, well,
Does Ted know about last week? He'll have to watch it. He'll have to watch it.
So I think to capture young people with racing, I don't think you can ram it down their throats. I think you almost need to allow them to find racing through osmosis. And I think one of the things that clearly appeals to a lot of young people is music festivals. Now, lots of people turn their nose up at this point instantly and go, Friday night concerts after racing's bollocks, we don't need any of that. If you were to have, a bit like Radio 1's Big Weekend or Glastonbury, a weekend music festival where the concert starts at, say, 7 p.m, you have this stage in the middle of Epsom and you get young people in. If they buy a ticket to the music concert and they pay an extra 10 quid, they can come to the races as well. So you're...
Rent a crowd.
Well, you say that. Now, to a certain extent, you are getting people there for a music concert and not for the racing. Yeah. But if you get 70,000 18 to 35-year-olds coming to see a Stormzy concert and say 25% of them have a good time, enjoy what they saw with the racing, you know, you dress it up Call it the Derby Festival. Their wristbands are racing colours, you know, Coolmore's silks or whatever. Big screens with the racing on, food stands, educational areas, welfare, all these things that we really need to drill home with young
Kentucky
people.
Derby sort of thing.
Absolutely, on the infield. And then, by osmosis, they look over at the racecourse and go, that looks like fun. If 20% of those festival goers, 10% come back, and then word spreads amongst communities that probably don't see racing that often, then we are hopefully spreading the message of racing being a good, enjoyable day out to people that don't ordinarily come, and targeting an age group that is so important for us as a sport to capture. That would be my... Have a Friday night concert, Saturday night concert, headline acts, pay a lot of money to get them, the big names, get Dua Lipa and Stormzy. Now, it might cost a lot of money. And that way, it might be an opportunity for us to capture an audience that we are struggling, I think, to capture at the moment.
If you could get ABBA to perform again, I'd go.
Yeah. The one's the recluse. Is she out of hiding, or is she?
I would.
A lot of people went into it. It's a great idea.
But do you, I mean, look, a lot of people will frown at that because it's like, it devalues the product, they might say, and people are coming for music, not racing. But we need to find ways to capture an audience, particularly with the Derby. And that will certainly make the aesthetic of the Derby look like it used to look.
And I'd say the Breeders' Cup, the way they've gone, they're going to bury it.
Because?
Too long. Go to the Breeders' Cup, there's too much time in between racing, too many Mickey Mouse races, all part of the Breeders' Cup. And obviously the breeders are promoting it, but the people that are there, you'd be pissed off, like waiting for 4 or 5 hours for the next race. There's nearly 3/4 of an hour between races. You'd be bored to stiff, 8 or 9 races.
The only thing I'd say about that is that the people in America love gambling. So you know, they've got no shame about promoting the fact that they've got 12 races. And okay, you've got, like on Breeders' Cup Day, you've got, 8, 9 Breeders' Cup races. And then you've got all the races that build up, and people are they're there to bet as much as they are for the racing.
But I see they brought the classic forward now. They used to have it the last race and the last
Nick Luck and NBC.
And more power to Nick Luck. It should be. It was bored. Now was that 15 or 20 Breeders' Cups, and we got fed up of it in between it. Too long drawn out. If you went early, you'd want to bring a sleeping bag with you.
But that's the other thing we've spoken about on the Paddock from America and our experience. The in-between is an important part for racing to get right, whether it's half an hour between races or 45. There's a lot of time when the sport isn't actually taking place. You have to engage the audience that are coming through.
It's just no one. If you went racing like to Belmont Park, there's no one in Belmont Park bar you have a big day, Belmont Stakes or Jockey Club Cup or something. The rest of it is absolutely big, huge population in New York, but no one going to Belmont. 30 or 40 drug addicts rolling in over the rails at you. Or whatever they're doing.
Haven't been. I don't think I want to go to something.
Let's hope the new Belmont's a bit different.
Blow your nose, Joe. Blow your nose, Joe. Blow your nose, Joe. Get rid of it. Blow your nose in over the hotel.
The other bit of news that's come through, I guess the Jockey Club also announced that they'd be putting a lot of money into Cheltenham and Aintree and those kind of major festivals on these shores. Now, that might come at the expense of a racecourse like Kempton, which I know you're on the committee of, is that right? And you've spoken already publicly about this.
I spoke about this on this podcast.
There's an option for Red Road development to action that would mean that the Jockey Club have to give it to the developer to be turned into housing.
So in 2017, it was announced that obviously the Jockey Club had considered selling Kempton as a housing development. And then obviously enough people, including the council, were against it. It's a very valuable green belt area. 2018, though, there was an option for Red Row to perhaps take up that development further down the line, and they have until 2028. And if there is something active up until 2028, they still have another 2 years up until 2030 to action that option. But it doesn't mean the end of Kempton. It doesn't.
What does it mean then?
Well, it could be. I'm not saying it's. But
and are you comfortable with that?
No, I'm not comfortable at all. But it is an option that the Jockey Club, however many years, sold to Red Row. So that's...
Some people would say that they've been a bit secretive about this option. What would you say to them?
Well, it's not been... So I joined the committee at Kempton, was it 4 or 5 years?
I'm not saying you have, by the way.
No, and it was already, anybody who was on that committee, it was well known because it's not an uncommon practice for that to happen. But up until 12 months, or in the last 12 months, discussions have taken place in the committee where they've said the option is still viable, but it's not something that Red Row have said they've shown any interest in. There's been no positive steps in that direction. But of course, laws change, governments change. Labour have come in, their manifesto stated that they, 1.5 million new houses that they wanted to do, and the law's been relaxed where they can now benefit housing. And so Kempton is it's 200 plus acres at Kempton.
On the green belt of London.
But there are still reasons why you wouldn't develop there, but there are also reasons why it could happen. It's very uncertain, but there are a number of options, including the racecourse continuing and for development to go. Don't forget as well, that area, that you're in, that you're talking about, it's so expensive that were you to build houses, I'm not sure it will cater to what the Labour government actually want and require. Yeah. So the fact that people are talking about investing in Cheltenham and Aintree and then equating that to Kempton being sold, that's a big leap to make.
If you were to wake up in Ireland and the headline in the paper was Kempton to shut down, what would you think?
We'd be disappointed. I mean, Kempton is synonymous with the King George. Now, the King George was run here on a couple of occasions as well. We wouldn't think it's the end of the world. And when we sold to Phoenix Park, which was every bit as important as Kempton is to London. Phoenix Park was a beautiful track, attracted all the Dublin people right on the edge of the city, and we sold it. And it took a long time before there was housing on it, but that was a big blow. But racing got over it. Leopardstown thrived. They got the Champion Stakes. The grey mare that Munoz Service was the last mare to win at Leopardstown. She won the Champion Stakes there. Grey mare, the Henry Cecil was the trainer.
Oh, Indian Skimmer.
Indian Skimmer, well done. And then it went to Leopardstown. But it has thrived at Leopardstown, and Leopardstown is going as good as ever, better than ever. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. One thing I was just before, I don't know how long we're going to keep talking. I think that owners are the most important people in racing, and I think that everybody, all of us as people in the media and everything, have got to realise that they're the one people, the owners and the sponsors, that get very little back out of racing. I think they need to be looked after better than they are.
How? How would you look after Owners better?
Well, I mean, I think the owners in particular, we say all of us now, I'm retired, but you go interviewing people after racing. I think you should have, unless the owner declines it, it's nice to talk to the owner. Rarely you go to the trainer straight away or the jockey. I think it's nice to give the owner the thing. And the same way when the presentations, if the owner doesn't want it, you get a camera up on the say, and for somebody who knows the people and say, that's Mary Jones and that's such a thing, and they're the owners of the horse. And to give them their minute in glory, I think that's what makes Cheltenham the magic it is, the people walking back in with the winner. I mean, to think that you're walking, and they all like to do it, walk in. Oh, we all love to do it. We all love to be part of it. Like, it's just that moment of greatness that you've bought this horse and now you're part of the celebration coming back in with him. The same way we're just standing up to get your trophy. No matter what kind of an ego you have, you like to think that people are happy for you and stand in front of you. I think they need to just to do that. Sorry, we're back to you, Tom.
No,
I think the owner needs to be well looked after because he's the one person that's a giver all the way. Like, trainers are doing it because they're making a living out of it. They might be great at the jockeys the same way, the stable lads the same way. They're all getting a wage. The valets, the groundsmen, the clerk of the courses, all of them are on a wage. The owner is the man who's paying the bills, and he should be sort of given that little bit of priority. Like, I mean, doesn't have to be treated like the Queen Mother, but he could just, like, we'd like to know he was there.
That does work better in jumps racing, though, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I think that's because, as in, there's more of a connection to the majority of jump racing owners than there is currently with flat racing owners for obvious reasons.
Too often, like, you know what I mean? But just when they're there, you just like to, and particularly with in the presentations of some of the races anyway, just that little flash, even if it's only a minute.
Yeah.
And
I suppose in jumps racing as well, it's an expensive hobby.
It is, yeah. It is a hobby.
With in flat racing you could get stallions, etc., and broodmares, and you can in jumps racing as well. But actually, what you're saying is it doesn't matter how much money you've got in your bank.
Yeah.
Winning at Cheltenham, for example, is a money can't buy experience that you want to show your mates.
Yeah.
And so we need to focus on that so that.
Yeah, so some more mates might say, geez, I'd love to walk in with one someday.
Yeah, that looked like so much fun.
Yeah, like I had so much fun. You see, the woman that owns the good horse galloping the Champs now. She's great for it. Because she's bubbly. She's bubbly and enthusiastic, and she's not patronizing. She's not worried how she looks or one thing and the other. She always looks well, but she's not conscious of like of the right side or one thing. It's just
Charlie McCarthy.
Charlie McCarthy is good too. Do you know what I mean? You know,
or the Flooring Porter boys when they were. It's just that sort of stuff.
And there's other fellas in the business say to themselves again, Jesus, like, oh, Christ, someday we might get there. Do you know what I mean? And that's was the dream. And that promotes everything, the buying of the horses in training and everything else, you know. And I think that's one thing that Willie has above everybody else at the moment. He's supplying those Cheltenham winners. Like he's 100, is he, or close to it?
Over 100.
Over 100. Like, I mean, like if someone has a big bundle of money tomorrow morning and say, I'd love to have a Cheltenham horse, you just look up Willie Mullins. It just bounces out at you. You know, where would they go? And like, just all the rest of them having great winners, but like, unless you don't like the name Mullins or you don't like being trained in Carlow, like there's no other reason. Like, go to Willie Mullins. It's just, isn't it? It's just like, you know.
So do you think that perhaps it's the media, perhaps it's us, and actually at ITV there's a real shift actually to show, I say real shift, but we are very conscious of showing presentations for sponsors and owners, speaking to the owners. It's always in our kind of psyche to do that. But do you think that racing can look after owners better?
Oh yeah, definitely. I don't know what the system here now, but at home they're sticky enough about giving tickets if you get in touch with the right people. But like, I mean, they give you 2 tickets, and you're going in and they're meeting at home, 2 tickets to have a lunch, and kind of you produce your card, and one thing you do. The lunch, some of them is fine, some of them is not edible, but that's not the fellow who's giving you the tickets' fault. You know what I mean? But I mean, that's what it is. Like, you know, some of it, you want Shep with you. Do you know what I mean? Like, to take away the bowl. But I mean, that's what it is. But it should be. Fella makes an entry, cost him money. No doubt in the world he should get. How many tickets do you? He doesn't want 20, but you bring 4. So somebody's going. He's going to bring somebody else with him. You're going tomorrow morning. You bring a couple of pals. You'd like to be able to say, "There's your ticket, lads," and in you go.
I think that as well with rogues. We mentioned the microshare syndicates who have thousands of owners. I think it's like 10 are allowed in the paddock. Why can't you make it 20? Why can't you give more people that experience?
They do it in Australia as well. Some discretion. You go to a race meeting in the middle of the week. You know, your horse is running, might be the first time the horse is running, whatever, and you got loads of owners. Well, why can't you give them more?
They might be the only people there. Bring them all in. Let them all sit in the ring and take a big picture of them all and say, there you are at Paddock, or there you are somewhere else. There's no one else here, but you're all here. You know what I mean?
Going, actually, only 10 of you are there, but there's the only other 15 in the racecourse have to wait there.
Make a fuss out of it. Do you know what I mean? He spends his few quid, and like, they're all givers. Anybody that's an owner is like, someone said to me, how would you get that? You want to be able to stand in front of a fire and throw 10 pen notes into the fire, and it doesn't bother you. Get into the horses. Because that's what it's like. Because it's all out. For the return, the only return you're going to get is walking in with a horse at Cheltenham, or the big day or celebration on that night, and make the most of it. Help them.
The difference in racecourse food offerings, this is something particularly I would imagine close to your heart, Rish. it can be. Could you rank? In fact, what about all of the sports that you've done?
Oh yeah.
What is the best food on offer?
Where Wimbledon, surely.
Well, you've done the What did they serve? What did they serve at the Masters?
Food at the Masters is extraordinary.
This is just an opportunity
by the way,
to rattle off
extraordinarily good.
Really?
I mean, I know there'll be people going, "Oh, the gravy train as well." Trust me, the gravy train at the Masters was something.
Was it? Like, literally.
That's what it is for Rishi.
The gravy train. The Wimbledon gravy train, the Cheltenham gravy train, the Masters gravy train,
the snooker,
cricket, the whole lot.
Any gravy going.
By God, you have a really dream. You know, you're not embarrassed about it, no?
The Masters they used to have in the.
And you're even doing this now. So you get
and for free.
Yes, can have a cross.
No savoury on there today.
Go on. How good Masters?
But in the media centre, they had both a la carte sit-down menu and a buffet. The buffet was the best buffet you could imagine, but you could also go in and sit and order off a menu as well. For all the media. There was no discretion regardless of who you are. That was how good, and it was...
Did you go to the buffet and then order a la carte?
How did you know? I'm actually my mouth's watering now. They did a short rib one year. That was...
Look at you, you're watering, isn't it?
Where does racing rank sports-wise with that? Is it a little bit lower than it should be?
It's a bit lower than it should be.
The one thing I would say, the And actually, it's a serious point, to be honest, because I think you're right. Some of the offerings for food and drink at the racecourse for the race goer is dire.
Yeah.
You know, it's not up to scratch when you have so much time in between races. And actually, I do think they could improve that, and they could improve the Wi-Fi as well at racecourse.
Some of the sandwiches you get the rest, you could top them off the floor and they'd bounce back up to meet you. You know what I mean? Fucking dreadful.
Yeah, and it's not that hard a win to make the experience
a nice
better.
cup of tea, a nice sandwich, or a piece of cake. You're not looking for what you're looking for. Everyone's not as fussy as you are. You know, something nice.
Not fussy. But the problem is that most of the people in charge of all these decisions of who gets what, they don't experience it themselves. And I think that is one of the worst things about a lot of people's decision making on racecourses. And I've said it before, and I'll say it again till I'm blue in the face. I would like every racecourse to have an entire audit of the customer experience.
Yeah.
So you go to the racecourse as a customer. You drive your car in. You try to buy a ticket online or whatever it is. You go and eat and try and find yourself to the toilet and then get a drink and all of that and get a bet on.
Yeah.
Do the whole thing so you know what's working and what's not. That's the only way you know how bad or good it could be.
Yeah, the only way.
And this is something that Ascot have done, in particular for the Royal Meeting. I don't know what they've done it so well to cater for everyone, of which at the Royal Meeting, from the Royal Enclosure down to what now it used to be the Silver Ring, it's now the Windsor, isn't it, I think? And they're even changing that name. So you're not in the Silver Ring, which isn't gold, because it's silver, you're now in the Windsor Enclosure. Just, there's a good offering for everyone and everyone feels welcome. And that's something that they've done well, definitely at the Royal Meeting.
And you have to have that. People have to have a good experience or say, I'll go back there again. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Could I just ask you a couple of questions? This might...
Horny or ordinary?
Cheltenham 5 days, would you be for or against it?
I wouldn't be for it. I wouldn't be for it. I think you're training it. Because if you have 5 days, you're going to weaken the races. Maybe you take a race out of each day and make each card 6 races.
Too many races
already. Too many races already. It's just trained it down. I mean, I think I'd be dead against. But listen, I'm an old dodger now. Like I think 5 days is like, and you know something, you couldn't afford it with the prices are charged at Cheltenham now for hotels and that. No one could go for 5 days. Bar you have a runner or you're a trainer or a jockey or an owner or something like that. No way could you figure out 5 days at Cheltenham at the cost of it. Not even the going in, the staying, the eating and everything else. I wouldn't be for it anyway. I think I'd bring it back to 3. I'd do away with, bring it back to 3. I'd do away with some of the other races there.
I'd vote for that as well.
3.
Never. I mean, that's
I know that's not going to happen. But you just ask it.
But there are too many races, too many options for horses. Make the racing.
That's not going to happen. But I mean,
they might move it Wednesday to Saturday. By the way, they might do that. That would be more likely than 5 days to get.
Yeah, it was on a Saturday one time.
Saturday
Arthur won on a Saturday. One of his World Cups, on a Saturday.
But then you're competing with the Six Nations. I just don't think that's sensible.
No, that doesn't make any sense either. No, so scrap that idea. That was a bad idea.
So why did it move? Can you remember at the time why it moved back?
It moved back, I think something to do with Paddy's Day or something, but it was one of his Gold Cups on the Saturday. I don't remember it. You'd want Prof. Scott here now, who's a few years older than me, to tell you exactly why it was. There was some funny thing about the government or something.
Was it?
Yeah, there was something, some fella either died or done something, I don't know what happened, but it was a Saturday, because I looked it up and I asked Bruff and he told me what it was, and I can't remember what it was now. It was something.
He knows everything.
He knows everything.
Yeah.
When we all get to his stage in life and his knowledge, you'll have practiced.
Unbelievable.
I'm just realising this was this mid-60s, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So I have aged
early
quite
60s.
badly.
Yeah.
Early 60s.
Early 60s. But Bruff was a Lawrence, was two great people, Bruff and Alistair. You know what I mean? To have worked with them is a privilege for anybody.
Alistair Down, and if there's anyone watching this who's not aware of Alistair's work, might be a slightly younger racing fan, I urge you to go back and read some of Alistair's work.
Alistair Down was
amazing.
Could put pen to paper. He could make music out of it. He was brilliant.
And the final question I've got to ask, because we do need to wrap. Unfortunately, I could talk to you. Well, we could all talk to you forever.
Go on.
Big racing coming up this Christmas, both over on these shores and your homeland in Ireland.
Yeah.
Why don't British trainers run their horses in Ireland during that period more?
Why in the name of God would they come to Ireland? They're getting kicked out of the ground in their own patch. Like, why would Liverpool want to play anywhere else other than Anfield? I mean, like, whatever chance you have of winning, Liverpool have a win in Anfield, they wouldn't have much chance if they go up to one of them other places. But the same way, why would you come to Ireland, like, to the good races? I mean, if you had, the good horses are in Ireland. I mean, we've novice chases there at the moment, and like, they're, we're only waiting for them to clash. Gordon's horse and Willie's horse and Gavin's horse, and they're all winner novices now. And even a couple of Willies, like when they clash, the novices, the good horses, Galloping the Champs, the Gold Cup winner, the Ryanair winner, and the previous they're all going to run in the three the same way with the hurler. You might be the hurler division mightn't be quite as strong. Lazzymouth is the best hurler around.
But Ballyburn and Tube,
what have you got? I wouldn't want it. If I saw an Englishman coming here now, I'd say get him looked at. He's not right in the head.
You know? and to be fair, Paul did it when he had the ammunition, didn't he? He did Tidal Bay when Emma won a Lexus. But you're right, so you're going to be a big trouble.
Nice idea now. You'd be coming like to go home with your tail between your legs.
You could win a handicap chase, Ted. That'd be about it, though, probably.
Not if we saw you coming. Right, you sneaked one in now. You might win a handicap chase, all right. But I think that our handicappers now, they're not as bad as your fellow over here is now. He spots us coming. He gives us £8 or £10.
One of them beat you in the Irish National.
A good horse beat me now.
Yeah, very good.
A good horse beat me. Yeah, he's a good horse. Does he run?
Welsh National.
Welsh National, yeah. Has he run the season? He has.
He won a hurdles race and then got beat convincingly in the Betfair Chase.
Yeah, he might be just a handicap.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you what it does. You saying about those clashes in Ireland during the Christmas period, we're in for some treat of racing, aren't we?
Oh, brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. The Christmas will be magic. The King George will be a great race. I think Willie's horse is going to come. Gaelic Warrior. And he looks the ideal type. Once he switches off, I wouldn't like to see him try to do what he did at Punchestown now over 3 mile around there. But he's a hell of a horse. Patrick gave him a wonderful ride at Liverpool, got him switched off, and he won. He's a great horse. You haven't got a superstar. You have good horses, but there's no Cato like or one of them around. You know what I mean? You know.
Would Paul come and ride him? Or would he stay?
Oh, Paul will ride him. King George.
The King George.
Yeah, but I'd say he'd come to ride the King George.
Yeah.
What have we haven't got any big race on St. Stephen's Day. We have races, but not no grade one. I'd say he'd come to ride the King George.
There's a very good 2 mile novice. Romeo Coolio will probably win that.
Romeo, or the other horse, Barba, but he's out of it, you see.
Yeah.
So Romeo Coolio would be hard to beat. I'd say Paul will definitely go to Kempton. And what a great jockey Paul is. Like, I mean, to come on there, he big boots to fill in rubies, and he's filled them fully up, like confidence and ride-wise and everything else. Like,
we've got a wrap, haven't we? Can he win more grade ones than Ruby did? Is he about 50 off him? I think he's something like that. Is that too
a lot
far?
of grade ones for a jump man. He could do. Should they make grade ones of the races? No, they're not grade ones at all. You could easily do that. You know?
Is this Australia?
Huh?
Yes.
Every second race.
I mean, there's about 50 other questions I want to ask you. Unfortunately, our time is up and you've got to get a plane home.
Yeah.
Ted, thank you so much
no, it's a pleasure
for
to be
joining
here.
us.
Thank you. Keep talking to me, lads, all night.
Honestly, it's
you're the youth.
I know you've got a flight to catch, but it's terrific to see you as always. Make sure you like and subscribe at the Paddock UK. Check us out on all social media platforms, and you can watch past episodes there. And next week we'll have a Christmas special as well, or a special, whichever one you want. Ted, for now, happy Christmas and thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you, lads. It's a pleasure working with you.